All right, we're live. Good evening, everyone. This is George Thomas from the Akron Beacon Journal with Steve Doerschuk, Browns beat writer from the Canton Repository, Marla Ridenour, columnist for the Beacon Journal, and Nate Ulrich, Browns beat writer for the Akron Beacon Journal. Both of them are on assignment in Pittsburgh. They got to witness that wonderful, wonderful football game this afternoon. Yes, that happened. What are your thoughts coming out of that, Nate?
Well, it feels like reality check to me. I was wondering if we'd get a reality check today. Maybe the reality check would have been that the Browns were really, really legit. But obviously it was not the case. It was the opposite. The reality check is that the Browns are not in the same class as the other, AFC North rivals, the two AFC North powerhouses, the Ravens and the Steelers. They aren't right now. I know they split with them last season, but 38-6 in the opener in Baltimore, 38-7 today in Pittsburgh, both blowout losses. I think that's the reality check. The Browns are now, right now, I think it's fair to say that they're in this category of they can beat some pretty decent teams, decent to good teams like the Colts last week. The Browns might be able to earn a last AFC wildcard spot, especially now that there's an extra playoff team in each conference. But there's still a clear separation between them and the teams that you could envision in the Super Bowl, like Baltimore, like a Pittsburgh, and we got that reality check today.
Where, from your point of view, where was the biggest issue today? There's no way I envisioned that offense being stifled quite the way it was today in that run game, and it makes you question how much they miss Nick Chubb at this point. I mean, the popular consensus was they probably wouldn't miss him that much. That seemed to be contested just a wee bit today. No.
I thought today was the really the first time they felt the repercussions of life without Nick Chubb. The number one rushing offense heading in today, they just couldn't get it going, and that allowed the Steelers to obviously tee off and beat up Baker Mayfield. But the number one issue to me was Baker Mayfield's poor play, the pick six on the interception, another interception that led to a touchdown in the first half. He went, going back to last week against the Colts and what he did in the second half in that win, 4 consecutive quarters with an interception. Obviously, he was playing hurt. Obviously, got hurt even more. Steve, I know you were talking about breaking down some of the statistics, so I'd be curious for you to answer George's question here, but those are some of the thoughts off the top of my head.
Yeah, Nate, when we were talking off air, so to speak, beforehand, I did notice the yardage was fairly even. Of course, the game was destroyed. But about 4 minutes into our cast here, Marla and Nate and George, a bigger point is kind of occurring to me, and maybe dovetailing off some of what you're saying, Nate. But for me, the most important part of the Browns finally getting their act together is going to come down to 3 main areas, and that is head coaching. And today we saw that Kevin Stefanski, new to his job, just isn't on the same page yet, and will have to go a long way to prove he can be on the same page as an experienced staff like the Steelers. Next thing is quarterback. Baker Mayfield, especially one who was not going to really have a chance to function today with those ribs and so forth. But Baker Mayfield is not yet nearly on the same page as Pittsburgh's quarterback, Roethlisberger. In terms of talent acquisition, we can't really place any kind of a judgment yet on the Andrew Berry era, but we can say that the Browns' constant changing of personnel regimes and the roster that is assembled therein just isn't on the same page as what Pittsburgh has done with its stability of acquisition of players. So to me, those 3 aspects made the imperfect storm of just getting it handed to you today at Pittsburgh.
Now, here's a question I have: Is Baker's play today more due to Baker or Baker's injury? It's a combination of the both, because, like you said, he's not been consistent this year for the most part, and the interceptions have been coming the past 4 quarters. So, what's that mean at this point?
It's hard to know because we don't know what he was feeling, but I do know on his first pass of the game, it was a pick 6. So he hadn't been nailed or drilled or pummeled or anything like that, until, later in the game. And I thought that the big hit where we all were like, ooh, is he going to be able to keep going, was Bud Dupree around the legs, and Cam Hayward cleaning up over the top in the left side of Baker, very late in the second quarter, right before halftime. But those interceptions, the pick 6 and then the other one came before that. So with Baker 100% no. Did it contribute to some of it? I asked him after the game. He said no, he's not going to use it. But I don't put those interceptions on his ribs.
They weren't great decisions. That's the first thing I thought.
They weren't.
Especially the first one. Not a great decision at all. What have you got for us this evening, Marla? What's in your mind?
Nate and I were talking about this on the way back to the car, but I wouldn't have started Baker today. I mean, you knew what kind of a pummeling he was going to get from Hayward and those guys. Now he's even more banged up. Stefanski says he's sticking with him, but he's going to be hurt at Cincinnati. Like, you're coming to the point where you have to decide, do you want to win or do you want to see what you have in Baker? And he really hasn't been right since the end of the first half, the last drive against the Colts. I mean, that's when he started off that drive 4 for 4, and then I think he was 2 for 5. Then he's 2 for 9 in the second half for 19 yards last week. He's got 4 picks in 4 quarters, over the last 2 of that game and the first 2. I really think you had an excuse to sit him to try to see if you could win. With Keenum, you probably wouldn't have, but I mean, the Steelers dominated them in all phases, but now you've got an even more banged up Baker going to Cincinnati in a game that you really need to win.
See, that the Steelers dominating defensively, I'm sorry, I just don't see the Browns being a force in the division without a consistent defense. Maybe that comes when they get these injured DBs back. I don't know, but the linebackers have been suspect, and they haven't generally been able to get anyone off the field. I mean, and let's face it, you cannot rely on Myles Garrett to come up with a strip sack to change the game every game. That's Herculean. You can't do it.
George, I put it completely on something that we haven't mentioned yet, but Nate and Marla, I'm sure this will resonate with you, but a lot of times football players and football coaches will take the responsibility on themselves as, hey, if you want to blame somebody, blame me. Today, Kevin Stefanski blamed himself, and I certainly agree with him. I blame Stefanski as well. And Marla, to your point of whether he maybe should have started Keenum in the first place, it even goes to that. But Stefanski did what a lot of inexperienced coaches will do today, and that is, well, what am I supposed to do instead of what do I need to do? And to me, that went down to the first play of the game. And not that you can kill him for this, running Kareem Hunt up the middle, but to me, in a game like this where you want to play outside the box a little bit and take some chances and be aggressive, to send Kareem Hunt up the middle for nothing, you knew it was going to be nothing, and it was nothing on the first play of the game. To me, set a tone that I didn't like, and then starting Mayfield in the first place, rather than recognizing early on that he wasn't all there, and you were going to have as much a chance as with Keenum as with him. And then also on that 4th and 1, when it was still somewhat a game, to stay inside the box and go back to Hunt against that defense that gave up nothing on the first play of the game and wasn't going to give up anything on this play and didn't give up anything on that. Maybe outside the box, everybody from Pittsburgh crashed on that play. So your play that would have had any chance would have been outside the box, throw a pass, maybe for a big play. So Stefanski blamed himself, and I blame Stefanski.
You weren't a fan of Metcalf up the middle, were you, Steve?
No, Metcalf. This wasn't that bad, George, but no. But yes, Belichick's career turned out all right with Metcalf up in the middle, and on off of that. So let's not get too far ahead on Stefanski. You know, I'll blame Stefanski, and I'll stick to that emphatically. But you know, still like him. And on Mayfield, I just want to throw this into. I'm not putting any of this on Mayfield. I make no judgment of Mayfield today based on the fact that he was in no physical condition to prove anything about himself. So I'm not off the Mayfield bandwagon as far as that goes.
Okay, so next week it's on to Cincinnati. One question before we leave. Are we worried about the offensive line yet?
Well, they had been good until today.
Yeah. What I don't understand is why you saw a lot of runs to the right today. They rarely ever, I shouldn't say rarely, but I don't see a lot of runs to the left side of that line, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just think that, obviously, Wyatt Teller didn't play, but, I don't know the impact of that in the run game. I do know that he had been playing at a very high level. And I talked to Damian Woody, who played for Bill Callahan and won a couple Super Bowls and made a Pro Bowl. And we talked all about the offensive line of the Browns being good and the Steelers front seven being good and being a strength-on-strength matchup. And this was the key to the game in Woody's opinion. And I share that belief in many ways. And the Steelers flat out dominated it. Woody said that he loves Wyatt Teller. He jumps out on tape. He's having a career year, obviously, but he's nasty. You see guys on the ground all the time on his tape. So Chris Hubbard might have been fine. Chris Hubbard didn't stand out to me from the press box, but I'm not sure if the running lanes were there that normally would be there with the way Teller had been rolling at right guard before that calf injury. And aside from that injury replacement, the Steelers are just really, really good. They're the number 2 defense heading in. The way they play Dupree and Watt on the edges makes it hard for that wide zone to get rolling. So the Bengals, it's not a layup. I saw the Colts had to score like 10 in the fourth quarter today to come back and beat the Bengals by 4. But I do think the Bengals are a defense that the Browns offense can get well against.
All right, guys. Next week it's Cincinnati. Enjoy the trip home. Be safe. Travel safe. That's the normal terminology, isn't it?
That's right.
Safe.
Yep.
So, until next week, we'll see you.